some form of shape. Here, the difference between governance and politics is governance is about how. How do you get things done? Not what do you do or why do you do them, but how do you do them? And civilian capability is remarkably thin on the question of how. What they want to do is to say what they did in Iraq or what they did in Bosnia, but not how to do things in Afghanistan. This requires considerable novelty in thinking. And governance, politics, so we come back, now requires 3 levels of thinking and 3 levels of clarity. First, what are Washington's politics and what are Washington's political aims? The 1-year framework in the McChrystal report is not dictated by reality in Afghanistan. It is the schedule of politics, the political calendar in Washington. And that's the reality that within which one has to think. But this should not be confused with the pace of time on the ground. Second is the national politics of Afghanistan, because tomorrow, most likely, the Electoral Complaints Commission is going to make its decision known. In either way, there's going to be a field of immense tension and uncertainty resulting from that discussion. So we need to get the framework. And 3 is the region. This insurgency, a lot of coin is based on the doctrine of a national government opposed to a nationalist insurgency. This insurgency is very clearly regional in context. And now we need to get the regional dimension of politics right. And that, of course, has its own complexities. Now, in terms of the civilians, the point that I'd like to make is that it's quality that matters, not numbers. 40 strategic thinkers are much better than 4,000 inexperienced people running around Afghanistan. Some of the most highly qualified United States personnel who are putting their lives on line, you know what they're doing? They're digging wells and supervising the building of schools. We've been digging wells in Afghanistan for 5,000 years. We have been digging wells for each other too. So I think selectivity is really key. A civilian surge vis-a-vis military is not the right direction. We need to have a lot more clear thinking and put Afghans in positions of responsibility. Now, this brings me to the key last point of observations, rescuing legitimacy. And the core of rescuing legitimacy is to shift the partner from being the Afghan government to being the Afghan people. Unless the shift takes place to the Afghan people, you're not going to get legitimacy or stability. And here is the critical insight again of the McChrystal report resulting from coin thinking. If the population is the center of gravity, then predatory and corrupt political brokers cannot be the partners. This is not compatible with coin in a population-centered approach. There's a very disturbing report from Helmand province. Helmand is the size of West Virginia, largest province in Afghanistan, written by a young American who works for the Institute for War. The British conquered the district with immense sacrifice and really, really hard fighting. Then the Afghan police went in to provide governance. And this young American interviewed a number of parents. And you know what was their largest complaint? The police was raping their young boys continuously. And they welcomed back the Taliban with open arms. As they said, that does not happen under them. So we need to get a sense of reality when we are saying Afghan security institutions need to increase to 400,000 in size. With what quality? With what governance arrangements? And with what type of relationship with the population? Politics is the art of the possible. So imagination always going to be at play. The issue here is setting parameters for the Afghan government that are controlled. Without setting those parameters of acceptability, the confusion will go on. So certain objectives for the Afghan government to be recognized as a partner, the wishes and aspirations of the Afghan people must take priority. That means that the United States and other partners need to be oriented towards the population and serve as checks on the abusive authority of a predatory government. In here, we need to come back and recognize the opening point. Electoral fraud in Afghanistan is produced a systemic shock. This is equivalent to what the nuclear industry experienced after the 3 Mile Island explosion. It's not a job for repairmen. It's not a question of fixing this valve or that. It requires understanding that systemic shock is occurred and one needs a systemic answer. Legitimacy has to be won inch by inch and square by square. Otherwise, one is confusing. So what are the options and what will be their consequences? There are 4 options for government. One is a coalition government. Mr. Abdullah and Mr. Karzai get together because they're both the government. They both ran as government candidates and with government apparatus. This will produce a temporary stability, but it would not produce the sustainable results that the McChrystal report demands. But it is possibly the most likely action or one of them. But the consequence of this needs to be understood. How would the Taliban perceive this? As restoration of the 91-96 group that they fought and defeated. And they would like nothing better than to say that they're fighting a restorationist regime. And what would be the sustainability of this needs to be looked into. The second is the opposite, that an international parallel government is established. That one builds from the current effort in the provinces upwards and essentially ignores the Afghan government. It is an option, but the sustainability of it, of course, depends on public support in the United States and in Europe. This is a 15 to 20-year proposition. So if people are getting into this, they need to understand the time framework. It will have parallels to the experience in Korea, South Korea. And it was a successful. So it's not that it doesn't work, but the commitment that is required is long-term.